title of this video is authority with respect to references. So the authoritative figure, somebody who's standing out in front. How can you tell who that person is based on the references in a paper? Well, as I've said, in this course we'll be really getting into the references, looking at the H index. You can then jump through to the author and look at their uni. What is the ranking of the uni? How many citations does the paper have? How valued is this paper? And the impact factor, how esteemed is the publication? There are loads of other metrics that you can use, but these are some basic metrics to give you a sense about the credibility of the journal, how credible other people found it, which is probably the most important thing, and how credibility is the author themselves and the university that they're at. Incidentally, knowing that about an author, where they are within that system, gives you a lot of information as to really how well they know the field and whether it's worth joining them on that, benefiting them by publishing a reference to them in your paper, so you add to their citation count. So, are the authors clearly identified? If the authors aren't there, then how can you know how credible the writers were of that work? Are they a professor? What's their H index? Can you see where they work? Are they working at the top institutions in the world? How do you know where they are? Have they been writing in this area for several years, or is this their first effort? Those are questions. There are issues with multiple authors. If you have a list of names, it doesn't tell you what that person contributed to the paper. And different journals have different rules about what it means. For example, in some of the biological sciences and chemistry as well, biochemistry, the last author on the paper list will be the head of the research lab. And the way that you can find research labs is just to skim the author list, obviously, and find the last name, and you'll see lots of papers that all end in that name because somebody's working in that lab. Sometimes the first name is all that counts. Other authors are just ignored. Sometimes papers can have hundreds of authors. Sometimes authors will put other people on there because they respect them so much, or they're friends with them, or relatives, or somebody did them a favour, so they put them on. So there can be issues with authorship as well. Now, if you're working with somebody, you're working closely together, who's first on the paper? If you do the writing and they do the work, or you have the idea and they do the submission, or they contribute this part of the work and you contribute another part of the work, it can create tensions and issues, and I've seen some of that. It's important that you decide to have a conversation before you do the work about whose name is going where on the paper, so that you have expectations and you have agreement. Don't go all the way through the process to get to the end with multiple authors to then decide to have that conversation, because it can be too late and it can hurt relationships. So be really careful about this one. So, what are some criteria? Substantial contributions to conception or design, or acquiring the data or interpretation of the data. There can be parts of the work that require genius, but they require very short amounts of time. There can be other parts of work which require huge numbers of hours and effort, but they can be repetitive and don't require so much intellectual horsepower. Well, how do you figure out where somebody should be in the author list? Other things that authors do: did they draft the work? Did they revise it? Did they give it final approval? And finally, did they agree to be accountable for all aspects of the work? So my basic criteria is this: if I am happy for somebody to come to me and ask me about the content of the work in detail and expect me to be able to explain it to them, and I'm comfortable that I can explain all aspects of the work, including what wasn't written about, anything that was missed out, anything that was changed, left out, summarised. If I have that level of detail, I'm generally happy to have my name on the paper. So, how can we find authors? Well, La Trobe Library has the Web of Science. That's a good place to start. There are many other places to start, but the Web of Science is a really good place to start. Jump on through the La Trobe Library, go to databases, Web of Science, go to author search, and you're on your way.